Alright everybody, welcome to the last part of this tutorial. I'm going to show you very simply how to lay out all the images that we created in the 4 previous introductory Photoshop tutorials in an InDesign file. So I'm going to go ahead, I have Photoshop open here, I'm going to go to File, Open, File, New, Document, and it's going to pull up custom page options here. I'm going to select inches. I want to see how big this thing could be, how big a page will be of the presentation, and I quite like 10-inch width by 7.5-inch height. I'm going to select 7 pages. If we were making a book, I might select the pages to be facing one another, so 1 page on the left and 1 page on the right, but in this case it's fine that they should be for a presentation 1 page after another, and you'll see what I mean in a second. My margins are just fine, 1/2 inch, and we don't need to worry about the bleed and the slug. That's for putting a book together. So I'll go ahead and go to Create. So there you see on the right hand side, it's indicating where all the pages are. That's in between two. First on the left there's the toolbar, and then there's sort of other menu options on the right. We'll talk about some of those momentarily. I'm going to come back to the creation of the title page in a second. First, what I want to do is place an image. So one of the ways you can place an image is go to File, Place, and we're going to go to, let's say we started with the sunset door. So I'm going to select this image here, and I'm going to size the image to the presentation, to the size of the presentation page, and I'm going to click Shift Control Alt E to fit the image to the frame. Alternatively, you could right click on the frame, and I'm going to do this again momentarily, and go to Fitting, Fit Content Proportionally. Now I don't quite like that it has a white background, so I'm going to go up here to the Fill option and fill it with black. So there you have it. I've entered in the first image here. You'll notice it's this little link which indicates, and this is the great benefit of InDesign, this image file is linked out to the original file, the original file being this image of the door with the sunset behind. I made a slight change to it since we first saved it, which we can see better, by the way. Right now we're seeing a typical quality rendering, but if we go down to the display performance, we can change from typical display to high quality display, and I just right clicked on the image to get this options menu to appear, high quality display, and it'll show me what I did to it, which is to create I added a filter effect in between what we produced in the Photoshop tutorial and what you're seeing here. More about this in just a second. Let's add another photo file. So I'll go to File. In this case, actually, instead of doing File Place, I'm going to first add a rectangle frame, which fills up the full presentation slide, and then I'm going to go to with the frame selected. I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to add. How about I add the sunset? Oops, I already did that. The space door. Now you notice that the image comes in too large, so again we need to fit it to the frame. So I'm going to right click on the frame and go to, Fitting, Fit Content Proportionally. And I quite like the idea of this having a black background, so I'm going to go up here to Registration, to the Fill option, and click Registration to give it that black background. Now, if I were to edit the original file in some way, then this image would update automatically, or will update when I refresh it in InDesign. And I'm going to show you how that works. So if I go to Photoshop and I open up our space door, there's our space door. And let's say I make a change to this. So I could go to, I want to go to this part of the image. So I want to go to the frame itself. And let's say I give it a filter. I'm going to go to Filter, Filter Gallery. Oops. I want to go to Filter, actually. Filter Gallery, ... This, what I clicked before, just applied the previous filter that I had applied to another image, which you'll see momentarily. But I want to apply a new filter to this one, Filter Gallery, to give me the option of what kind of filters there are. And I'm going to go something artistic. What about fresco? What does that look like? I'm going to change some of the options here. It's okay. Maybe watercolor is something a little bit more interesting. Not really. How about ink outlines? You can see it's rendering here in the bottom left. Oh no, that's something. Okay, I'm with it. I feel it. I kind of like this. Let's apply that. Let's see what happens. Interesting. Let's go with it. Now, if I save this file, save as, over the original file, space door, I'm going to replace the file that exists with this updated version. You'll notice that in the top left-hand corner, what was once a link has now changed to this caution sign. And that's what that's telling me is that the original image that is still being shown here, because InDesign hasn't updated yet, it hasn't refreshed the link. It needs to be refreshed anyway. That's what it's telling us. So on the right-hand side here, we can go to the links option. We can open that up. We see our little caution sign. And if you go all the way down here to the bottom of the links menu, you'll see update link, that little refresh icon. And if we click that, it will update, it will make the new, show us the new image that we created, that we saved over the old one. So let's see what that looks like. Bam, there it is. And I don't like the display here. I'm going to go ahead and up the quality. You wouldn't want to have high quality display for all the images if this was a very big file. So that's the benefit of InDesign, is it can show you low resolution versions of what will be exported as high resolution, but you want them while you're working on the presentation to be presenting in a typical way. So I'm going to change this, even though we don't need to. We only have 7 images. I'm still going to change it to a typical display, because that's sort of how we would want to be working. When my presentations sometimes get up to 350 or 400 slides, if they were all high quality display, my computer I wouldn't be able to even really scroll through them, let's say, effectively, and be able to sort of, put the presentation together quickly enough. It would take time. My computer would be a bit laggy, let's say. So the third image we have of a door, I'm going to create the frame here with the rectangle, File, Place. I located in another folder, gated door, and I've made some changes to it since the Photoshop tutorial. I'm going to go to fitting again, fit content proportionally. If you don't fit content proportionally, there are other options here. We could fit content to frame. That'll stretch it out to maximize the image into the frame. We could also fit frame to content. So in other words, it'll shrink the frame down to the size, the size of the image. So it brought in the sides here and left us with a white background. And I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm going to select. Notice I'm making my selection here. Select the frame and the image, and I'm going to make sure that the background is black, because I think that makes this, anyway, the image sort of pop out. And again, it's not displaying it with the quality that it will render as, or anyway will be exported as, but if I go to high quality display, then it'll update that for me. And I'm going to change it back to typical display for our purposes here. Now you notice that it's linked. What would happen if I were to relocate? What if I were to relocate gated door from this folder? I'm going to cut it here. I'm going to remove it from here, cut, and I'm going to paste it back with the other doors. Paste. Keep an eye on this link here. So now the link, this image file has been relocated to another folder, and there's a question mark here. Now InDesign doesn't know what it's linking to, because I've broken the link by relocating the gated door file to another folder. Well, the way to solve that problem is to select the frame that the image is located in. That helps us. That tells us which file we're talking about. So this is gated door file. You'll notice the refresh, the update link option isn't available because the link is broken. I can go to this link icon to relink the image, to relink the file. So it's no longer in this folder. I need to go and manually find out where it is. So I happen to know where it is. It's in this folder, and I can either double click it here or click open. And when I do that, that question mark is going to change from a question mark to a back to the link icon. And that's very important for the conclusion of this process. When we want to export a PDF from InDesign, we're going to want to make sure that all the links are solid. In other words, all the images are linked. There are no links that are broken, so that it exports the highest quality possible from the original file. So gated door, there we go. It's linked. We reconnected it. Let's add a few more images here. I've got my frame I want to create. This is where I want the image to land, to be located. We're adding monster attack now. It's way too big, so how about we fit it proportionally, fit content to frame. And I kind of like where this is, but I almost want to zoom into just the battle between the helicopter and Godzilla. So what I'm going to do here, sort of jumping ahead, what I'm going to do here is select the frame that this image is located in, and you'll notice this circle in the very center. This is so that I can manipulate the image itself. So if I click, after clicking the frame, if I click that circle, that gives me control over the image within the frame. So now I'm toggling the size, in this case, of the image, whereas if I just, with my first click, I'm only toggling the size of the frame, so not affecting the image at all. So I'm going to click that again, so I can change the size of the image. And it's not like Photoshop where it will scale up proportionally automatically. In InDesign, you have to hold Shift. So I'm going to hold Shift so I don't lose the proportions of this image. And I'm going to zoom it up to focus on this epic battle. There you have it. It looks good. It's definitely got desktop background potential, this. Okay, moving right along, we want to add in 2 more images. So I'm going to go ahead and create a frame using the rectangle tool here. File, place. We're going to put the backrooms image in. And it came in quite large, so I'm going to fit content to frame, fitting content proportionally, Control-Alt-Shift-E. And I don't really like where it's located. I would prefer not to do a border with black here. So, and I don't mind zooming in and maybe cutting off a little of the top and bottom of the image. So I'm selecting the frame, clicking in the middle to select the image itself, and then I'm going to hold Shift while I scale this up to either side so that it fills in the whole presentation format. And then I'm going to hold Shift again to drag it down vertically as opposed to sort of it going wherever it wants to go. And I'm going to try to center that doorway right in the middle. All right, that worked out just fine. And how about another frame, dragging from the corner here down to the bottom. File, place. We're going to find another image to locate into our InDesign file. Marblehead sketch. Again, it came in way too big, so I'm going to do fitting, fit content proportionally. And this time I'm going to do the same thing I did the backrooms image. I'm going to fit it up into the frame, and I'm going to move it over a little bit to accent the view. It's a bit sketchy. I kind of want to see what the original was, just to be sure that the quality of the image is up to par without opening up the original Photoshop file. So we right-click on the image, go down to Display Performance, High Quality Display, and that'll give me the details of the image that are going to show up in my presentation. And that looks lovely. I'm going to go back to Display Performance and do the typical display again. So now we have all the images for our presentation. And I want to create a title slide. So with some text. Before I do that, I wanted to mention, since I told you that Photoshop is a program that works with raster files or pixelated images, whereas InDesign and Illustrator work with vector information that sort of tracks information between points. And the effect of that is that when you zoom into information, unlike Photoshop, so we're zooming into these 2 lines over a red box, no information is lost. So you'll never see the vector information here. The lines here and the texture or color in the background that's produced in InDesign or Illustrator. You'll never see it get grainy or pixelated. So it's a totally different way of producing graphics than Photoshop, which is image-based. Anyway, where were we? We were going to do a title slide. So I have a title slide ready that I prepared in Illustrator to make you curious enough to maybe try that program eventually. Place, so File, Place. InDesign, Resources, Title Slide Border. So there's my very sexy border for my presentation. Just so that I don't move it around while I'm working, I'm going to select it, right-click, and then hit Lock here. And that will allow me to not select it while I'm working inside the space that I want to be working. One of the ways, now it's locked, you can see the little lock there, I can go to Object up here in the menu and click Unlock All, and that will make it editable again, so I can move it around. For now I want it locked. And I'm going to start working with a title, so I'm going to create a text box by clicking the type tool here, and then creating the box, and I'm going to call this Adobe Demo. I'm going to highlight my text, make it white so it's in contrast with the background, up the font size to, I don't know, that's too big, probably 24. What font to use? I kind of like Gotham. Let's do Gotham Black. And again, I'm using the drop-down menu for the type, which is automatically activated whenever you're doing anything in a text box. I'm going to center the text in the box, and then I'm going to move the box into the center of the image, into the presentation slide. And these helpful lines are showing up because in View here, Grids and Guides, I have Smart Guides activated. So these are very helpful cues while you're working to help you get everything sort of lined up exactly right. And they do much more than just show you the center, as you can discover for yourself. And Snap to Guides, when you create guides, so Snap to Guides is activated when you have guides already existing, like this border, this gutter, not gutter, these margins around the page. That will allow me to create things that snap. I'm just going to give you a quick example. So these things will snap to the border. You notice it's snapping there. I can snap, it snaps up here. I can create a guide by going to the rulers on either side, clicking and dragging. And if I want the location of the guide to be a bit more exact, I could go to View, Grids and Guides, Snap to Document Grid. So that's activated now. I'm going to go to the same Grids and Guides and also Show Document Grid. That will allow the guide I create to snap to a predetermined grid, which isn't showing up now on this slide because the grid isn't showing on this. You would usually show up on the slide, but it's not because I have this black overlaid image on top of it. So you get the idea. I'm going to deactivate the grid. I don't want it to snap to grid, and I don't want to see the grid. Oops. Yeah, hide baseline grid. Oh, hide document grid. That's what I want to do. Okay, we're back to where we were. I made my little text here. It's in the center. I want a subtitle as well. I want to paste in place. You could just Control V and it would paste, but a little bit off. I'd like to paste in place. So the way you do that in InDesign is with Control Shift Alt V, or you can come up to Edit, Paste in Place. There it is here. So I clicked T. Alternatively, if you wanted to get into this text box, you could double click, or you could click the type tool and then click within the text box. So I'm going to highlight this text. I want to make it a subtitle. Probably wants to be a bit smaller. I'm going to say From Godzilla to Marblehead. Now I want to position this in the center, so I'm going to select both, and I'm going to hold Shift so I can move it up and down while I'm moving it. So that looks like it gets me right in the middle. It's annoying me that I have these frame edges here. So what I'm going to go up to, because I want to appreciate, and the guides, by the way, on the outside. I want to appreciate what this thing is going to look like without these guides, which will not be exported in my PDF, or will not be included in my PDF. So if I go to View, Grids and Guides, I can hide the guides. That turns off that border on the outside. If I go to View, Extras, I can hide frame edges, and that will turn off the edges around images and text. So that'll get rid of that for me so I can see what this looks like. That looks fantastic. So I've got one image after another. This is the way my presentation will come out. I think it looks great. So let's go ahead and do a couple things here. First of all, we want to save this InDesign file. That should have you laughing, because I should have done that from the very beginning. Where do we want to go here? Adobe tutorial, InDesign, and I'm going to call this task 5 InDesign. That saves the InDesign document. It doesn't create a PDF. So what I want to do is File, Export, and there are all these different file types we can export as. If I choose a JPEG, it'll export each page independently as a JPEG. What I'm going to do is export a PDF as a print PDF. Interactive PDF is a much weightier file. It's a bit bigger. My default is just to do an Adobe PDF print. So I'm going to save that in this file folder here. And it gives me a whole bunch of options as soon as I go to export Adobe PDF. First of all, I want to make sure that all pages is selected so that it's exporting all the pages in the presentation. I could also select just a range. So I could type in, for example, 1 to 3 and then skip 4, 5 to 7. That'll give me all of them except for page 4. But in this case, I'm going to do all pages. High quality print, compatibility goes all the way back to Acrobat 5. That's fine. Let's talk about compression. If you want a high quality file, you don't want to compress your images down below 300 or 250 pixels per inch. So I tend to leave it at the default settings here. Marks and bleeds we don't care about. This stuff we don't care about. This is more for exporting, for printing a book. The most important ones are the general option and the compression, and everything looks good to me. If you had a really big file, you might consider lowering the PPI to something like 150 PPI, and then the image quality down to medium, and it'll help to export a smaller file size. I think we're ready. Everything looks good to me. Let's embed the page thumbnails and export. So this little loading bar up here that briefly appears indicates that your file is being exported. So here it is. How big is it actually? 7.25 megabytes. So we could have lowered the quality of some of the in the compression option of the export to help us have a smaller PDF. But let's go ahead and open this up and see what it looks like. Let's go full screen. Adobe demo from Godzilla to Marblehead. And I'm flipping through the images here. Again, they're being rendered in the highest possible quality. There's our stylized gate. Creepy backrooms, and lovely Marblehead. Fantastic. You thought you were done, but you're not quite finished, because good practice with InDesign is that you save, of course, you save the file, but if you save the file, it's only saving the information that tells, that, let's say, information about where everything is linked to. So it's only saving the InDesign file. Let me put it that way, and you'll understand as I continue. If you want to save everything that's involved in the InDesign file, so you want to sort of what we call package the texts, or not the text, the fonts that you're using, together with the original images that you've included in your InDesign file. You want to put everything together so that you can move it to another computer, and you don't have to worry about what happens if I take my InDesign file and I try to, and I just copy the InDesign file to a USB and then I open that up on another computer. If you did that, all your links would be broken, because the other computer wouldn't have the same folders where your images are located, and you'd have to individually relink them one by one, and that would be very time consuming. So the way to avoid that is to save the InDesign file in a way that packages all the links, all the fonts, everything that's used in your InDesign presentation all together. So the way that you do that is you go to File, you go down to Package, and we're going to ignore all of this stuff. We're just going to click Package here. And we need to select a folder for this to be packaged in. I'm naming the folder Task 5 InDesign folder, and it's all these options we want to have them selected. So copy the fonts, copy the linked graphics, that's all the images, update the graphic links in the package, etc., etc. So we're going to package this. And where we did the packaging, what you'll see here is your folder with the InDesign file itself, and a PDF. All the fonts that are used in the InDesign file, together with all of the images that we linked into it. And this is the folder if you wanted to transfer your work to another computer or another hard drive, work on it at another terminal. This is the way that you would do it. You would transfer the folder and not the InDesign file itself. That's very important. So that's my introductory InDesign tutorial. Good luck and goodbye.